I'll start with Camarillo Authority. Chair Scott Bear.
Here.
Supervisor Kelly Long.
Here.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Here.
Mayor Susan Santangelo.
Here.
Council Member Martita Martinez Bravo.
Here.
And we have a quorum for Camarillo. For Oxnard, Supervisor Kelly Long.
Here.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Bert Perello. Councilmember Gabe Turan.
Here.
And Chair Eugene Fussell. We have a quorum.
My apologies. There is one supplemental change that came out for item Camarillo, I believe it's item B, approval of the authorization for the APL Limited LLC lease. We had an addendum that came out for that lease. So that was the one that was circulated. That is it. Thank you.
I'll move to approve.
For Camarillo Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo.
Yes.
Councilmember Martita Martinez Bravo.
Yes.
And Chair Scott Bear. For Oxnard Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perello. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I think we, for the Oxnard, need a motion and a
Oh,
second
separate.
first before we.
Sorry
yeah.
about that.
So I will motion yes.
I will
as a
second.
first. There you go.
I will second. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Kelly Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Councilmember Councilmember Gabe Turan.
Yes.
And Chair Eugene Fussell. The motion passes unanimously for Camarillo and for Oxnard Authority.
At this time, nobody's on Zoom.
My name is Bob Trimborn. This is Bill Thomas. I am the director of the air show, director of operations, and Bill is our air boss. Bill runs the airside portion of the event, so all the air show activity that you see in the sky, here's the man that does it all. He's the magic behind the screen, so to speak. And so I'm responsible for all the other operations of the air show itself. So we're here tonight to talk about the 2023 Wings Over Camarillo. It's coming up soon on 19th and 20th of August, and we have a really great show planned. And so with that, we'll get right into our presentation. So we're going to do an air show. So many of you have been to our event, but this is how it looks from the sky. This year we won't have the C-17, unfortunately. We'll have the C-130. We could have another large transport aircraft called a P3 Orion. But there'll be a lot of other kinds of aircraft on display to the extent of the next slide, please. So as you know, we're a 501c3 organization. We're supported by the member of the Air Force here at the airport. EAA supports us, the 99s, and we couldn't do this event without the support of the airport staff. They're out there taking up the tie-down chains and helping us to just the event. I can't say enough about their help, about the help we get.
I would say that also our mission for the 501c3 is only to put on an air show. We are not in the business of scholarships, but education, obviously, but it's via putting on an air show.
One of the great things about our event is we generate the more money at the gate, and what goes past our expenses, half we put that into our kitty. The other half we give away to the nonprofits that help us out. Over the last 12 years, we've given away $651,000 to local nonprofits. Makes us, I think, the biggest giver nonprofit.
It's important to note that the nonprofits that we give money to are the ones that support us at the air show with volunteers. So just not to any nonprofit. They have to be working on the air show.
So why do we do this? Well, one thing is to preserve aviation history and to educate the youth in our community. You don't really teach the history of aviation in schools anymore. And so we view this event as a big educational opportunity to teach the children what aviation is all about. It's not just getting on a tube and going to New York and sitting there behind someone else's seat. It's all about flying and aviation. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this, really get that into the community, into their mind about what aviation is all about, what the other aspects of it are.
I think it's important to note that some of our prime volunteers are the Sea Cadets out of the Naval Base Ventura County, Sheriff Explorers, CAF Cadets, and Boy Scouts and YMCA. So we really have been trying to draw in the youth in Ventura County. Part of the STEM Pavilion is the folks from Boys and Girls Club and from the Stream Museum.
So we draw from throughout the region, LA County, all over Santa Barbara. A lot of people come from all over to experience the air show. Last year, we set all attendance records. We had 10,000 people a day. We came within one car parking space and ran out of parking. So we were really fortunate. We didn't turn anybody away. This year, we've expanded our parking to accommodate more cars so we don't get that close to the edge. So what do? If you've been to the air show, you'll know what we do. We have a lot of aerobatics, historic military aircraft. We do the STEM Pavilion. Remember the Air Force has their exhibits going to the museum. We do a veterans hangar where veterans of all services come to and interact with the crowd. Big classic car show with a car parade, lots of food vendors. We actually added many more food vendors this year because we had lines that were like 100 feet long for last year's event. And of course, we have rides in the So Bill, this is Bill's show. You can't read this because it's like an eye chart, but it shows you how amazingly compact, and we just do one event after another.
So if you went to the Magoo Air Show, it was about 7 acts with a jet team on each end and 4 or 5 of Camarillo's wings over Camarillo performers in the middle. This show will probably have 50 to 60 airplanes flying all together. If I have any spare airtime with no airplanes in the air, then I'm not doing very well. So we try to keep it fully packed. So if you're not paying attention, you might miss an act.
Next slide. So we're honoring the Korean War veterans this year, the 70th anniversary of the armistice with the Korean War.
So the Grand Marshal this year is Royce Williams. He was made headlines of Southern California newspapers a little while ago, getting a Navy Cross for having shot down 4 MiG-15s during Korea, that they were all manned by Russians. And so it was held secret for until 10 years ago. So he is probably would have had a Congressional Medal of Honor if he had it, if it had been open source at that time. He is 98 years old, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that we don't wear him out too much.
We're going to fly him up from. But our big act this year is going to be the return of the F-18. So in 2021, we had a local boy, Joey Kurtzy, who learned to fly here at Camarillo Airport. He went into the Navy, became a naval pilot. He flew an F-18 in flight demonstration. Now he's actually the commander over the group that does the flight demonstrations. And so they're going to come back and reproduce that event again here at the air show. People really loved it. There's a big demand in our survey to bring the F-18 back. It's a frontline fighter, stands watch on the carriers right now as we speak. And each maneuver they're going to do is meticulously planned. Safety is the utmost important.
So the performers, I'm going to run through them quickly, but Vicki and John Culver, both proud favorites, have been here for multiple years and keep wanting to come back. The pyrotechnics will explain a little bit more what we're doing on pyrotechnics in a little bit. Jason with the MiG-17. Judy Phelps and Sammy Mason from Santa Paula. The Dawn Patrol or RVs coming from the Riverside area, so they're relatively local. Corey Ward has got the microjet this year. This will be his first air show performance in it. He's getting certified as we speak. We've got T-34s, Warbirds. For our military fighters, I've got it laid out for 3 different military demos. The first one will be the European with the T-63 and the Mustang, Spitfire, and we'll be doing in the ME-108, which is one of the CAF German airplanes, and we'll include there some pyro and then end up with D-Day doll dropping parachutes. The Pacific Theater will have the PBJ from the Confederate Air Force, or the CAF, Commemorative Air Force. The Hellcat, the Zero, which is one of the few Japanese Zeros that are still flying. The Korean will be set up with the A-26, an F-86, a MiG, and the Corsair that was just in the movie on Korea. We've got D-Day doll that will be dropping a couple of times. That was an actual drop at D-Day in World War II. Stack displays. We'll have a lot of military folks are coming. Our experimentals. The word experimental is an FAA term. It means that they are home built. They're not built with the same requirements and specifications as Cessna or Piper, but they are all certified by the FAA, and they're really high-end.
This is my baby. When I came on board a few years back, this was in its infancy, and now the car show is one of the major components of our event. Over 200 cars come each day for the event. They come in and set up. It's a beautiful display. During the time when the round shoots have landed and the recovery, and then we do our car parade up and down the run for the taxi.
STEM has become a really prime area in a lot of air shows, and ours is one of the leaders. We have a great STEM pavilion, including last year. We had one of the Mars helicopter prototype. Veterans Hangar, a lot of interest in that. Will be as part of the CAF museum area. Family fun.
Lots of kids.
Great
Lots
to
of
see
families.
great to see the kids talk with the military folks. They just love it full size. Finish up with the Condors doing the Missing Man. The information on all of our tickets are online this year, so that we're trying to cut down the amount of cash that
There's no cash sales at the gate. Everything's credit card or electronically purchased. And that helps us in many ways. To process people through quicker. And people are used to doing that now. We transitioned almost all the way last year, and this year we're all electronic. So when you purchase a ticket, you have to go online. It's really easy to do.
it's easy to do in the line. If you're standing in line and haven't got your ticket, pull out your smartphone and do it. Okay, so what I'd like to do real quick for the two areas that usually have the most concern. One of them is the pyro and the other is the F-18. Here you can see the animal shelter, main runway. And last time the F-18 was here, all of the stuff it did was on the 500-foot line. I'm going to move the F-18 out to the center of the runway, so we'll gain about 1,000 feet of distance. I won't try to kid you, it's going to be loud. And we just hope that we've been working with the animal shelter. We're trying to figure out as a group what the best way is to do it. They would prefer not to have the F-18, but we're working with them and we're trying to come up with as many ways as we can to temper the sound impact on the animal shelter.
We've met with them, discussed mitigation.
That's right. The pyro, it's important to know that the animal shelter does not have an issue with the pyro. We've worked with them to a point, if you notice the ends of the sticks, they're aimed at the animal shelter. That's because the explosions for the dynamite sticks are 90 degrees to it. And I get more complaints from Oxnard than I get from the animal shelter.
And this year we reduced the number of percussions.
Yeah. So we also asked the pyro guys to reduce it to a single stick instead of two sticks that you saw there to cut down on the crack that the folks and the animals here. So we're really working hard at trying to make sure we're as user friendly as we can be.
That concludes our presentation. 10 minutes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Our biggest issue last year was everybody tried to come in right at 12 because that's when they knew the flying was going to start. We're really hoping that people will come a little earlier and not necessarily hit the 12 o'clock. The other thing that we did was we moved the F-18 to the end of the schedule. So it's next to last, or yeah, pretty close to next to last. So around 3:30. So it'll probably be harder to get out this year than to get in, but
We're also going to add 2 additional lanes for people to process. The wait time. And again, we added a dozen more food vendors because we literally have lines forever. Very popular event.
and we added security checkers on the gates also. So the dial folks that are doing the wanding, we've increased the numbers there too, because we recognize the time. But I think that the longest time that people stood in line were 17 minutes, just even though the lines were long. 17 minutes was what the timers said.
And we did set maximum attendance of 10,000. So that once we sell out 10,000, we'll get that number per day.
Just one last comment. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for giving your time and your heart to this nonprofit and to serving our community. I did see the marketing video on Visit Camarillo. If you have not had an opportunity, it's a great video. So I'm looking forward to attending the event with my family. And I really do appreciate you working closely with the animal shelter to ensure and try to mitigate any noise complaints that may come out of that. And it sounds like you're doing the work. And additionally, I'm just proud that the city of Camarillo is being supportive in trying to move the event along. So thank you so much.
And please, if you know little kids that are coming, make sure that they have your protection. The FA team is loud and the little kids and the dogs will appreciate it very much.
We'll have earplugs.
Okay.
No,
Thank-
we're giving them away.
Oh, awesome.
We're
Even better.
Giving them away.
Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you dealing with the animal concern. The air show is always popular. A couple of questions specifically. You mentioned that you share the funds that you brought in with local community things. Counting Oxnard, is this simply generated and spent in Camarillo? Or do we get a,
Nonprofit that supports that, that comes in with individual public to produce the event.
so they have to work to,
They have to be part of the event to get the money. And we have the Sea Cadets, probably half of them are from Oxnard.
okay, the second question, I appreciated you explaining about the parking. And I'm just looking at this like this. You generate income, you get a ticket to go to the show. Does the ticket entitle you to parking? In the future, if you want to do better, Dodger Stadium jacks up the price of parking. A couple of
We
bucks.
don't
It's not-
charge, we
it's
don't
not
charge.
Popular,
Yeah.
but it might be something that you
Yeah.
look into
Oh.
to benefit your organization more.
It's so we sort of put the prices up a little bit in the last couple of years. And we've held the price this year, but the only parking we're charging for is for VIP parking.
Thank you very much and good to see you, Bill.
Thank you.
Question here.
I have a couple more questions, gentlemen. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to wait for you to sit down to say that. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation also. Very informative and a very popular and successful event for the county. And, the community very much appreciates it, I'm sure. Along the lines of what Councilmember Perillo was saying for parking, I think I can see the logic in that where maybe it's a consideration for folks moving forward. I see that on the website, you say you encourage carpooling to accommodate for parking. And if there was a cost for parking, even if nominal, that might also encourage folks to carpool anyway, so that they're not coming in multiple cars and coming, as neighbors in one van or, suburban or coming in one car or whatever the case is. So it doesn't even have to be, you make all your money on the parking, but it might be some incentive for folks to consider carpooling and alleviate the arrival and departure congestion that might happen. And then just a couple of questions too, for purchasing the tickets in advance. I appreciate that is a system you're using. I can see, I'm on the website and I see how I can purchase them. Are those able to be purchased by phone too? Do you accept like Zelle or Venmo, or how is that working for folks so they can hear that?
It's all electronic. So if you go on your phone, you just put your credit card number, if you have either Apple Pay or Google Pay.
Okay.
We accept all forms of electronic.
Okay. Will there be maybe QR codes or something at the event where
There'll
people would
be-
just scan it?
there'll be a QR code you scan, pops up. We'll have people there to help people get their tickets.
All right, great. And then my last question along the lines of what Councilmember Perillo brought up about the nonprofits. I think it's a commendable strategy to have folks work the event and then their organizations can benefit after the fact. So thank you for that. Looking at the STEM pavilion they're going to have, I don't know how folks, how organizations will find their way to volunteer or connect with you, if that's a historical partnership or if there's a process or an application they have to do. But I think about the Boys and Girls Clubs in general, Camarillo and Oxnard, they have a very intentional focus on STEM programming for youth who participate in those programs. And so if there's overlap there on what they're doing, I mean, sure, they could sell treats or, help out or, seat people or whatever their duties may be. But if there's ways to connect our youth with that STEM pavilion in a very intentional way, I think there could be a lot of wins with that as well, because they should be doing that stuff anyways outside of the air show. And I think that you offer another opportunity for them to see that, and who knows who the next pilot or engineer might be who sees that. And so I just wanted to throw that out there and thank you again for the presentation and for your work.
We're trying to grab the 11 to 13-year-olds and hook them, because if you can get them, then you keep them.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
One comment, if you can give us information of how you get the information to various groups, we can distribute that at city council meetings.
There's a
Public announcements.
Volunteer, you click on the website, you can see volunteer, you click on that, you can always call us or go through the website, call Bill. We can, like Allison Barker is our STEM Pavilion coordinator.
Okay.
She's the one that does that, so.
She is so good at it that Point Magoo asked her to be involved with the Magoo Earth Show. So she was one of the centerpieces of the STEM Pavilion at Magoo.
And a last comment, I think it's fantastic you're not dealing with cash after the fiasco that happened at the fairgrounds.
Tommy died. That drove us.
By the way, since Supervisor Long and I both are RDP 21, now RDP, a lot of STEM folks connected with that organization, and I pitched to them at least 2 or 3 times about them getting involved with our STEM folks, so that we, in the correspondence and the interface between STEM organizations seems to be pretty good.
I'm sorry, Chair Bear, we do need to receive and file that. Before we do that, we do want to check if we have any public comments. No public comments. Roll call for Camarillo. Supervisor Kelly Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez.
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo.
Yes.
Councilmember Martita Martinez Bravo.
Yes.
And Chair Scott Bear. The motion passes unanimously 5-0. And for Oxnard,
I'll move approval to receive and file. I'll second.
roll call for Oxnard, Supervisor Kelly Long.
Yes.
Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
City Council Bert Perello, City Council, Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell. And the motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Good evening, Chairs Bear and Dr. Fussell. So this evening, I'm just going to give a very brief update on the outreach efforts of our Camarillo Airport layout plan update study that we are in the middle of conducting. And in part, we're keeping these items topics of conversation because we really, to us, the communication and engagement with the community is our top priority. So we last gave an update in May about and we reported on the meetings and where we were at that time. This evening, we are just going to touch on our outreach efforts and what's coming up. Dave, if you could. Thank you. So as I mentioned, outreach is and getting the message out that we are conducting this study is a priority for the airport. We want anyone who is interested in being involved or learning more to know how to be involved, to understand that this is going on, and the methods that we've been doing that are broad. So we have, it has included advertisements in local newspapers. We're making sure to try to get all folks from the East County to the West with our publications. And then we also are publishing these advertisements in Vita, which is a Spanish language weekly publication, trying to broaden our outreach. We also are putting messages up on social media, utilizing our airport social media sites, but also some of the countywide messaging since they have a wider audience. We also post information to our studies on our airport website, along with all the study information being available on the study specific websites. We have supplemented these messaging efforts with email blasts, or we call them e-blasts. And usually these are topics that are reminders of meetings coming up, or information that in our experience that we're hearing that there may be some confusion about. So we'll try to put out messages that provide some clarification. The airport layout plan, our e-blasts are reaching our airport tenants. We also have a community interest list that is continuing to grow. And then we're really partnering with the city of Camarillo in particular, since the airport is in this community, to make sure that we're getting the message out there. So we're in talks with leadership, but also making sure that these same messages are reaching the city PIO, who has been great about posting that information on the city website, and then also using some of your platform or the city's platforms to spread the messaging further. We also have held study-specific public meetings, but we're utilizing our platforms with the commission and here at the authority to broaden the opportunity for the public to speak at meetings, to just be reminded about the studies, and to keep it a topic of interest. And finally, we also have a lot of direct communications going on with the community. We have individuals that contact staff or the consultant group, and we respond either through calls, in-person meetings, or emails to answer some of their questions. And I know that too, we're regularly communicating with county and city leadership and our local residents and businesses. What's coming up next, we're excited to share that we had submitted in May, we reported that we were going to be submitting our forecast for the FAA approval. We did, and we actually have already received approval for our Camarillo forecasts. And those are critical for us to help us develop the next chapters that will be shared at the next meeting. And right now, that is anticipated to be in the November timeframe, based on the work to develop the chapters and get them translated. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or receive any comments. Sure. So we are hearing from the public. I want to. I would say that I'm not sure that I'm hearing a lot about the outreach efforts, or we're not receiving feedback on either a lack of or needing more. What we're hearing more about, if anything, are related to the airport layout plan is noise. And so we are trying to separate those issues, because an airport layout plan update doesn't actually analyze noise on a meaningful level. So we are, for example, when we held the ALP public meeting, we actually had our consultant with a board specifically for the Part 150 noise study for Camarillo Airport, so that we could kind of direct over, because we do want to answer questions. We don't want to just say, hey, no, but I would say that is the bulk of the communication. And as we go forward, I'm sure we'll hear more. Yes. My experience, I would say, we get a certain number of comments and emails and messages from known residents that are, unhappy with the noise levels. But I would say that my experience in attending the public meetings and speaking with the community members is we actually have a good mix of folks that we hadn't heard from and that wanted to learn more and that wanted to voice their concerns. So
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I move that we receive and file the report on the airport layout plan.
We'll check for any public comments.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry.
jumped the gun.
Uh,
Public
Chair,
comments?
Chair, we do not have anybody who's indicated they wish to speak on this topic.
Thank you. All right, now I'll move that we receive and file the airport layout plan.
And a roll call for Camarillo. Sarah Kelly Long.
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianey Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martina Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
and Chair Scott Bear.
Yes,
The motion passes unanimously 5-0.
thanks, Ms. Powers. Next up, item B, approval of an authorization for the Director of Airports or the designee to sign the third amendment to the lease with the Airport Properties Limited development of a hangar complex. Ms. Hurley, you have the floor.
Hi, good evening. My name is Madeline Hurley. I'm the lease manager for the Department of Airports. The item before you this evening is a lengthy third amendment that if you've had a chance to read through it, you may get a sense of the time it's taken to negotiate an agreement to assist and resolve some longstanding issues with our developer, Airport Properties Limited. For those who are new, authority, I just want to point out this particular development here is part of a longtime lease dating back to 2001 with Airport Properties Limited, a developer who came and developed the initial yellow property and then added this hangar, and this hangar over the years. The lease contains some provisions for additional options to be exercised. And over the years, there was disagreement about the timing of exercising those options. This particular amendment helps to resolve disagreements about the timing of exercise of options, the size of the lease premises, both the existing initial premises as well as the future option areas. The amendment provides that the remaining option areas, which would be the red, purple, the rust, and the maroon, within the next 7 years. So that accelerates for us the timing of and encapsulates the timing of when those properties can be developed. One other interesting item, which is I think very beneficial to the airport, is that the opportunity exists for the developer to convert storage hangars, not convert, but to develop commercial hangars instead of storage on these option properties, which meets a need that we have both at Oxnard and Camarillo for additional commercial services here at our airports. Those would have to be, run through the traditional permitting process as well. Another important item is that it resolves the boundaries of the area for development and confirms square footages for those options that have been exercised and existing leased properties. Any questions?
The lawyer in me has one question. I noticed that there's a lawsuit that was pending. Is this amendment a settlement of that lawsuit?
I wouldn't call it a settlement. To my knowledge, it's a resolution of issues that were raised. So
And the lawsuit has gone away or it's going away?
I believe the legal term is
Dismissed?
pended. Mhm.
Pending. So,
Mhm.
so he's still suing us, but we're doing an amended lease with him.
Pardon?
The developer is still suing us, but we're doing an amended lease with him?
It's a pending, so I'm sorry, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe it's resolved.
Ah, okay.
with this
That's what I was
amendment.
getting at. This will make the lawsuit go away eventually, is what I'm getting.
Yes.
Okay. That's the goal. Any questions, comments?
The hangars sizes would likely be constrained by the size of the option property area, which would be, based on development guidelines that they'd have to work through. I'm sorry, can you reread that section? Yeah, go ahead. Let's see.
It's page 28. of
Yeah,
the-
what that issue had to is, one of the things we hadn't done is define the footprint of their existing lease. So defining that, what we told them is we weren't gonna go back after them for additional rent. It was the new rent with the new established site. plan. That was our trade. So that was the issue. Yeah, it wasn't defined, which gets into the legal point, is it wasn't defined in advance, so I can't tell you what that number was because of that.
Sorry, your page numbers don't match up with mine, so I was looking for that reference. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Okay.
public comments?
Chair, there are no public comments pending.
Move staff's recommendations.
We have a motion and a second.
Roll call for Camarillo Authority. Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martita Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
and Chair Scott Bear.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Good evening again. I will run you through this update, and also I have a couple more items you'll see me for tonight. So at Oxnard Airport, you may be aware that we are currently under construction with the taxiway connectors Alpha through Echo reconstruction project. So we're pretty excited. I'm going to run through, just as a reminder, briefly what the project scope is, where we are progress-wise with the project, a few highlights to take note of, and then we have a revised estimated completion date. Next slide, please. So as the descriptor or the naming convention of the project conveys, the scope of work includes the reconstruction of all 5 taxiway connectors at Oxnard Airport. It also includes the relocation of an FAA power line from a storm drain to a better, safer location that was discovered during the runway reconstruction we did previously. We have completed 2 of the 5 taxiway connector reconstructions. So both taxiway Alpha and taxiway Echo are complete. And our next slide are currently working on taxiways Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, as well as that FA power line I mentioned. A few of the project highlights to note, or sort of reminders, is that at the completion of this project, we actually will, as required by the FAA to meet their design standards, we will be renaming our taxiways. Currently, it will be renamed from Alpha through Echo to taxiway Alpha 1 through taxiway Alpha 5. Additionally, the parallel taxiway Foxtrot is going to be renamed Taxiway Alpha. So personally, I like the old naming convention, but we have to follow the rules. So we are going to be sharing that information with our pilots. We have a updated construction flyer that we're about to e-blast to all our tenants. And with that, it will be a reminder of the naming, the change in taxiway connector names, but also a revised completion date. Originally, we had been looking at July 21st, but we are now looking at August 9th to complete the reconstruction of all the taxiways. And this is due to a few factors. The contractor was a little late in completing Taxiway Alpha reconstruction, but then we've also had a few FAA moratoriums that we had to observe that extended the date. And that means that before some of the holidays we experienced this summer, we couldn't do any work because we couldn't turn on and off the navigational aids. And then we also have had a few weather days that have extended that out. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. In regards to the name changes of
Yes.
the taxiways, what visual signage, painting, what will we do to educate our pilots? Because those that have hangars there would know more, but when they're flying in from other places and so forth. So what's the plan there for making sure the markings are?
Sure. So we will, first we have our construction flyers that we've been distributing throughout the process has included this information that they will be renamed. We'll be sending that one out again. Additionally, we're working with our FAA inspector to update our supplemental chart so that once the taxiways are named, that will be published with the FAA. And then additionally, all the airfield signs that are for pilots when they're on the ground will be able to, those are all going to follow the new naming conventions and are being replaced as part of this project.
Great, thank you.
Chair Fussell, no, nobody's indicated they wish to speak on this topic.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I see on the Department of Airports website, you have a page dedicated just to this reconstruction project. Thank you for that. Two questions. One is, will this presentation at minimum, the slides we just saw, be able to be posted there so folks who navigate to that page can get that update? Or if possible, maybe even the clip of this presentation, this part of the meeting, maybe could be too as well, even if it's, just a.
I'm not that talented, but I'm sure we can, we can get something like that posted.
Great. I know that there have been some folks, in addition to pilots, but from the community, found interest in this project. So I think that'd be helpful. And not too far, I don't think it's off the agenda item at all personally, but I'll just throw it out there very quickly. Regarding the soil that's being stored on the other side of Ventura Road, perhaps that information could be placed on the web page as well. My apologies if it's there and I missed it.
Sure, I think we have a press release. I'm not sure that is on our website. That was our messaging when the issue was first raised and we were receiving a lot of questions. So we can make sure certainly that's visible. And then one thing I would want to know, Dave, is it possible to put the presentation up and go back to the second to last slide? I did have one item that was way at the bottom, so I think the slide went too fast. I did want to point out that, certainly we have been working through this project. It was originally designed for us to haul off our excess soil. And then after we had bid the project, and working with the water board, we had to pivot. And so we ended up having to change our plan and stockpile the material until we could determine whether really we had any PFAS detected or not. And so aside from that, and that's how the stockpiling sort of began. But aside from that, we also have been working the issue as best we can to reduce, if we could, the quantity of stockpiled material. And so our engineer was able to to redesign midway through the project. We couldn't do it for Alpha and Echo because we had already moving along, but for Bravo, Charlie, and Delta, we're going to be able to keep more of that soil in place. And so we redesigned the cross section and we're able to get FAA approval. And that's resulting in approximately 43% reduction in the overall excavated material we'll end up stockpiling over there. So we were pretty pleased with that. And then additionally, some of the noise created by some of that activity at night as we're stockpiling the material will also be reduced because we're reducing the trucking.
Thank you for that. And I believe Councilmember Perillo and I have fielded a couple of questions from folks who live near the area about the stockpiling, and I appreciate the information that's been front loaded about that because it's very easy to now reference that. And just recently, I offered to directly connect Department of Airports with a resident, and it appears they declined that. I think they have enough information at this point, but yeah, if that information is all on the one page about this particular project, it'd be great to just point people to that page whenever possible. And then if they want more info, they know who to contact beyond that. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add, I do want to just add that I want to thank the city of Oxnard, Councilmember Perello and Turan for your work with community members, keeping us up to date with issues that come up, but also putting that information out. We do appreciate that. And I think from our side, it seems to be working. Those folks that were originally concerned, I think have the information they need. So we appreciate that very much.
I'd just like to follow up by a compliment to the staff. They got on it when they were given the information. They covered the piles. Some of the original people that did complain, and Mr. Freitas is 100% right, they're not complaining, but there is a life outside of that on social media. And there are people asking questions about, what is it? What kind of carcinogen is? Oh, I mean, goes all over the place. And then they get into water table testing in a neighborhood. And there has been, to his credit, he's involved, but he's also an advocate pro airport, but he's just been elected as a neighborhood chair for Via Marina, Mr. Doug Turber. And he has some real concerns. One of the issues that I really want to thank you guys is you put a fence all the way around the place. That made a big deal. That made a big deal. But when you mentioned some of the soil can be now kept on site, is that the soil that is being piled up on Teal Club Road, off Teal Club Road inside the fence? There's a tremendous amount of ground up asphalt, dirt combination.
No, so
And
that
the
is,
only reason I'm asking,
so my
that's not
understanding,
covered, and I don't want to start getting questions from people. You said they were covered and you're a liar. I don't want that to happen.
sure. So that is not soil, is my understanding. It's asphalt grindings.
Okay,
And the water board has only been concerned with the soil.
thank you. That's my question. Thank you. Oh, sorry, my first question. Sorry, I didn't ask my first question. Ms. Long asked a question, and I'm not a pilot, and I've been in a plane a few times, but when I fly in an airplane, I know somebody knows what they're doing is driving the airplane. But if I'm flying the airplane, God forbid, I fly into Oxnard and I don't know which one's A, 1, 2, B, C, D. Is there a sign that I can see? I mean, I don't know if I would fly in and fly over the runway to see where the hell I'm gonna land. Or is there a sign that says, Bert, park it here? Like getting off the freeway, Vineyard Avenue. That's what I'm looking.
Yeah, as kind of touched on a bit is there's multiple indicators for, so we will do a whole mass output of information through our means. But then there's national systems, supplemental documents that then go into things like ForeFlight. These are electronic versions for pilots to do flight planning. And then when you're on the ground, you physically see signs that have the location. They're color coded, you know, what taxiway you're on. So even if you had no idea there was a change, you would actually see that sign. It's like a stop sign. You would see that in front of you. So there's multiple ways, information.
I probably didn't understand a little slow, sorry, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Powers.
Thank
you. Any public comments? Chair, nobody has indicated they wish to speak on this item.
Okay, can we get a vote?
I move to receive and file.
And a second.
Okay, receive and file. Can we get a roll call?
For Oxnard Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Supervisor Vice Chair Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Okay, D, are you gonna talk to us about D?
No, but I'll be back for
Okay.
E, F, and G.
D is authorization of director of airports as designated, but except on behalf of the airport, a air rescue firefighting emergency response vehicle as basically a gift for 30 grand from Pasadena. That's the value of the truck. And also to buy a truck from San Francisco for $14,000. Mr. Peters, you want to talk about that? I will. So by way of history, Oxnard Airport continues to maintain its Part 139 certificate, which allows that airport to service commercial airline. They haven't had service in about 12 years, but we continue to try to bring that service back. So to keep that certificate current and active, we've got to train our staff, we've got to do inspections, there's a manual of how we operate the airport. And another piece of that is that we have this aircraft rescue firefighting pieces of equipment. The current primary and backup vehicles we have, the primary is about 18 years old. The backup is like 36 years old. They've lived past their life. And 2 years ago, when the cert inspector from the FAA came to do our inspection, there's time drills as part of that inspection. They did the drill. The cert inspector came to meet the crew after they were done, opened up the cab, and a wall of water poured out of the cab from the roof turret, failed and flooded into the cab, shorted out the radios and, out the door. Needless to say, our equipment is old and we need to find some replacement. So we can go through the FAA grant process and we have it on our list for things to ask for. The new vehicle is in the neighborhood of $900,000. That's on our list down the road several years. And then when you actually get the funding and put in for a request to build that equipment, it's usually 18 to 24 months before you get that off the assembly line. So you're talking 3-4 years. So we needed a solution right now. So I called in some favors from folks I've worked with for 30 plus years. We found some sister agencies, Burbank, that had a vehicle, although it's a year older than our primary, it's in much better shape. And it's manufactured by a company that produces their equipment. So they were willing to donate that to us. So we have to go to the board to accept that donation. It's greater than $10,000. So we're asking for your approval on that. San Francisco wasn't as gracious, but fairly gracious. And they would sell us a similar, better equipped vehicle for about $14,000. So we'd have a better primary and backup. And that would buy us probably 7 to 10 years for these types of equipment. Again, these are coming from airports that have a lot of equipment and it's underutilized. So it's usually parked in a bay, all but one day a month might leave their fire station or something like that. So it's in very good shape. So that's what we're asking for is authorization to accept the donated vehicle from Burbank and to purchase, asking for the support before we take to the board to purchase the SFO vehicle for $14,000.
I agree with the analysis and I read it with interest. The one we're getting from Burbank was made by Oshkosh. I guess they have made a better vehicle than the 03 because the one we're getting is 2 years older than the one that we have. And I saw where the one we have just sort of broke down, so maybe it was inferior to start with.
Put in perspective, Titan One, the vehicle we have, they've been in business about 35 years and have manufactured about 1,000 of those vehicles.
Mhm.
Oshkosh has been in business for 70 years and
Mhm.
has 5,000 of those vehicles, including a lot of military
Mhm.
versions of those
Yeah.
in the fleet. That, so not only does that, they have many more, twice as many years of experience and more vehicles, but when we're looking for parts, you've got 5 times as many options to part out old equipment. So when you're looking for parts, the other nice thing is, one's an international, the current vehicles we have is an international, the other's a Titan One. Now we'd have 2 Oshkosh. So when we're training staff, it's similar cockpits. Pilots would understand, right? It's kind of the same car. So it's not, this is different when you're in this one and this is different. It's the same kind of.
This outfit, Simmons and Martin, they actually go and check these things out? Or-
So Sitson Martin is a company we've hired. They're specialists in servicing our vehicles.
Mhm.
So that's their specialty, but they also will go and check. So we brought our fleet, our county fleet with us. That's not their expertise, but we
Mhm.
also included Sitson Martin to come and inspect both vehicles for us as well.
Do the older ones have any salvage value?
There'll be some salvage value, yes. The international 36-year-old vehicle, I'm not sure how much that will be, but the Titan will have some
So
In
there's
the-
some offset to that 14,000.
in the thousands of dollars probably, but yes.
Thank you. I do want to thank you for the report and then the info here. When I first saw the item and read through it, I thought maybe there was a typo, there was a 0 or something missing from the costs are at minimum, because just through municipal work on the city council, I know when we purchase vehicles for this type of use, they are can or right. So I think the question I do have, and it sounds like our chair touched on it a little bit, Mr. Freitas, is that these particular models, do we know of any issues around reliability or common things that we would look for that we wouldn't want to start sinking money into fixing, or like when you buy a used car, you get a good deal and then you spend a little bit of money up front fixing things that weren't disclosed at the sale, but it sounds like the case.
Yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. Going first to your costs, as I mentioned, a new one is $800,000 to $900,000. And then the aftermarket, there's folks that come out and get surplus, they take those, update them some, and then we turn around and sell them, and those go for $400,000 to $500,000. So, with 20 years on them. So yes, these are a good price for us. But that's why we brought our fleet department from the county and Sitson Martin, outside third-party contractor, to go visit them on site and take a look at them and run through them and give them a clean bill of health. Well, they're not perfect. There's some things we've got to work on. But the other is they're coming from large entities that are pristine with their, I mean, San Francisco, for example, has 3 fire stations on the airport with about 15 of these ARC vehicles that they maintain, and they got a whole fleet. Same with Burbank Airport. So they're baby, if you will.
Yeah, they're not sitting around.
They're maintained very well,
Yes.
and they have to be. Same problem we have is if those vehicles go out of service, they've got a window of less than 24 hours to get them back up and running, or they can't have airline service. So, I mean, they have to be well maintained and have redundant systems and things like that.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I think you disclosed in the fine print that it's gonna cost about 45 grand to bring these up to snuff.
Yes.
So. I'm sorry.
Okay. Question. I really appreciated you explaining, opening the door and water coming out. It's going to go to 2-part question. Did the water come out because I think I understood from you, somebody came to see if these things were working. Did the water come out because there were leaks in the system? or did the water come out because it had not been undercover and it filled up with rain?
So these vehicles have a turret per spray nozzle and on the roof, 2 turrets to spray. Basically, they're designed to dump 1,500 gallons of water and foam in 3 minutes. And they do that because of all the analysis for airplane accidents. You've got basically 3 minutes to get out. So that's how they're designed. So the answer to your question is it failed. The roof turret actually failed, leaked gas, and so it leaked in from that turret doing the exercise as if it was responding to an emergency.
I appreciate that. That if it had been something else, this is my follow-up question. Are these vehicles kept undercover?
Yes, they are kept in a large garage, I'll call it that.
At least
basically.
a roof of some type?
It is, they are both covered inside, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready to entertain a motion.
I will second.
We're going to check for any public comment.
And nobody's indicated they wish to speak on this item.
And the motion was by Mr. Okay. And the roll call for Oxnard Authority Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perrello, Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
The next item is E. It's authorization for the director of the airport designee to accept and sign the Federal Aviation Administration grant for $19 million for taxiway F. This-
Good evening. I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you were going to continue reading,
Go ahead.
but I think you definitely captured it. So this evening, I'm before you requesting, staff is requesting you recommend the Board of Supervisors authorize the director to be able to accept an FAA and Caltrans grant when or if offered. And we're asking at this point ahead of the grant offer in anticipation of the FAA's deadline for grants and also the board's meeting schedule. Typically, the federal grant cycle runs or ends September 30th, and they get out their grants in, they'll be pushing out these last grants towards the end of the cycle in most likely in August and heading into the beginning of September. And we need the flexibility if we are offered the grant to be able to accept, because the grant offers usually come with a fairly quick turnaround for acceptance and will expire if you don't. The grant amount is based on the projected eligible total project costs and will be adjusted higher or lower to reflect our based on bid construction costs as well as available FAA funding. We actually did open bids for this project on June 27th, and we received 3 bids. We have not, we've provided a bid recommendation based off of those bids to the FAA. And until the FAA accepts our bid recommendation, that is why we're showing this in an estimated amount. And just to let you know, all 3 bids were within 10% of the engineer's estimate. But it is a lot of money. I mean, we are looking at the total project cost at just under $19 million is our estimate. And therefore, we're just requesting your support, and I am happy to answer any questions. Yes. Yes. So this is the runway. And we reconstructed that in 2021. Currently, we are working on each one of the 5 connector taxiways. And then And then the project, Taxway Foxtrot, which will actually be called Taxway Alpha soon. But this is the final airfield pavement that we are looking to reconstruct. And that when we originally did the project back in 2020, or when we were bringing these items before you, we tried to package runway, the taxiway connectors, and Taxway Foxtrot into one bid package. And that was because we wanted to take advantage of the efficiencies in reduced costs, oversight, design of items for these projects that usually would be 3 standalone projects. And typically, these are large enough projects that they would stand alone, each on their own, and we wouldn't normally package them. But we also work closely with the FAA. And when we did package it, it was actually because of encouragement from the FAA that they thought that they were going to have some funding that would allow us to get more work done. But unfortunately, there's never any guarantee with the FAA that the funding is going to be there until they actually offer you the grant.
The number escapes me. What did it cost to do the top part of the runway, the one that we rebuilt?
You know, that I apologize, it escapes me.
14? Okay.
14.
Okay. I'm grateful that you have the presentation and the slide is up, because there are people, as I mentioned, on social media that are going, how could it be $19 million for the little connectors? That's what they're, I know, I'm seeing
Sure.
that, yeah. But when I got asked, I couldn't answer the question. So I appreciate that. Is the airport going to be shut down again when this is done?
So to construct or reconstruct taxiway Foxtrot, we will not be shutting down the airport. We actually have broken up the work to allow operations to continue, but we will have different connector taxiways that will be open during different phases of the work.
Okay, and along that line, I remember one reason that the board decided to do the whole enchilada in one shot was that it would be seamless. It would be like they wouldn't have a bump with the asphalt. How are we going to address that issue if we break up the project?
Well, we're breaking them up in large enough. I mean, we are going to have some seam, but they're minimal. We have 3 phases, so we'll be doing as much area as we can that allows operations to continue.
Okay, and another question, is there an expectation that more material will be taken across the street in the fenced yard?
So
And
this
the reason
is-
I, the
yes.
reason I asked that, this is closer to the site that actually contaminated the ground, the old ABEX site.
The material is, okay, so we have a couple options. Learning from our taxiway connector project, we are currently working with the water board to do pre-construction in-site testing of the material with the hopes that anything that is clean will be able to be directly hauled off, and our bid allows for that. Anything that, and it's not just PFAS, they're testing for heavy metals and other elements. Anything that has, that essentially doesn't get that clean pass will be stockpiled, similar to what we're doing over on the 11 acres, except for that we are going to be keeping it within the airport proper boundary. So we're not going to add any material that needs to be stockpiled, if at all, over to the 11 acres. We're going to have it on a location at, within the airport airfield boundary.
And I just want to share, this is a heads up. The neighborhoods across the street, Sierra and Seaview neighborhood, that happen to be in the district that I represent, big deal. But that's where questions are coming when the state goes in every so often to test the water. And they have testing sites because of what transpired at ABEX and what got into the ground. And that generates a lot of social issues with respect to the dirt that's been put on the other side and some of the questions that were basically skies falling. And that's just a heads up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Powers, for the presentation. I realize that the question I have, I could have asked it earlier, so apologies. But
Sure.
since we're still on the topic of the reconstruction projects, and considering the large amounts, I know this has been covered before, but just as a reminder, what is the lifetime of these projects, and how long can we expect for them to stay in a good status before?
That's a great question. Doing a reconstruction is a major project. It also, for the runway, we were actually closed for almost 3 months. So reconstruction, the FAA actually requires that their designs and our methodology be able to have a 20-year life cycle. So the minimum is 20 years. We anticipate that with the subgrade enhancements that we're doing as part of this reconstruction, that we should get even more life than that.
Thank you so much. And since we are approving or considering the approval of this ahead of the grant being awarded, would we expect to have this come back to us to ratify once it is approved?
So we're asking for the authority to be able to accept the grant. We will be coming back separately to award the construction contract. And at that time, I'll also have information, and that is the bulk of the costs associated with the grant. So this item is not anticipated to come back, but we will be likely in September or the October meetings come forward with the construction contract.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Anything from the public?
We do not have anybody indicating they wish to speak on this item.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Perillo, yes, we have 5 people who are watching.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll move approval.
Have a second?
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
For Oxnard Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perrella, Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell.
Yes,
The motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Chair there.
Too much fun. We're on item F, authorization for the Director of Airports or designee to award annual consulting services contracts for fiscal year 2023-24 to Kaufman Associates, Aviation, Mead and Hunt, and the Adams Company, and to issue work orders against those contracts. Ms. Powers.
Thank you. So each new fiscal year, the department looks to enter into annual service contracts with professional consulting firms to support operations and projects at Camarillo and Oxnard airports. The solicitations follow the county procurement process. And once an annual contract is in place, work orders are issued against the annual contract for specific services or tasks. It's important to note that this action does not result in an immediate fiscal impact. It's only when the airport requests a task and issues a work order against the contract that we would incur any fees for the term of the contract. And the type of services that are included with the firms that have been selected include engineering and plan review, specification writing, construction estimation, project oversight, inspection, and planning and environmental reviews. Additionally, sufficient revenue and appropriations are available in the adopted fiscal year 23-24 budget. And therefore, staff is requesting that your authority recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the recommendations. And I'm happy to answer any questions or receive comments.
Questions, comments from authority members? Any public comment, Mr. Nancy?
Chair Bear. Nobody's indicated they wish to speak on this item.
For Camarillo, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Roll call for Camarillo Authority.
Oh, Councilman.
No, so the count, well, there's a series of them, and we did the county procurement process requires that that these firms have been reviewed and interviewed. And then if you're satisfied with their work, you can use them again. We actually went through a solicitation process in 2020, I believe, for a 5-year for our main engineering consultants. And some of these firms were in that process. And if we are satisfied, we can negotiate rates.
Because this question comes up a lot, I want to be clear. The process to go through solicitation RFP for a consultant, both the federal side and the county, can take 6 months to 9 months to get through that process. So typically what we do is we do this outreach and solicit, go through, meet all of those requirements, and then do that for a period of 5 years. And we use those, and then we redo it all over again. So we do an hour, we do solicitation, all of those to meet both the county and the federal side. Instead of trying to do that every single, we would be burning up 6-9 months a year, just really inefficient. So that's right.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? We had a motion and a second.
Yes, we'll do the roll call for Camarillo. Camarillo Authority Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martita Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
and Chair Scott Bear.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Second.
For Oxnard Authority Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perello,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell. The motion passes unanimously 5-0.
All right, my final item.
You're with us for item G,
I am,
an update on the Part 150 noise studies.
yes. So we are following the same format as our update for the ALP, and you'll actually see the slide closely resembles and provides the same type of information. We wanted to make sure that we updated your body about the community outreach to date that we have been conducting for the 2 noise studies. The summary is a combined effort. We've been able to sort of by combining these in our advertisements, we've been able to increase the amount of advertising per study. But that's been possible because the studies were kicked off at the same time and currently are following a very similar pace. If depending on the development of materials and the FA along the way, those studies could take on their own track, and then we would be advertising them separately. But as starting off with advertisements, we hit many of the same publications to try to get a countywide outreach. We had 17 ads that we placed leading up to the meetings, the initial meetings in March. We also have been posting on social media, our websites, We've had a little bit more to explain for the noise studies and information to share. So we have more supplemental e-blasts that we've been sharing. Additionally here, the outreach is a little bit more expanded since we're talking about a Camarillo airport noise study as well as an Oxnard airport noise study. So we're hitting our tenants, our community interest list. We also are sharing with the City of Camarillo, City of Oxnard, PIOs, and PAC members. We're sharing information about our progress and other communication through our public meetings, as well as direct communications. And then maybe a more interesting piece for some is what's happening next. So just as I reported earlier that our approval of the forecast for Camarillo was received, we also received approval for our Oxnard forecast. So now that we have that approval, we are working on the next chapter development, which will allow us to continue to develop the materials that are necessary to hold the next meetings for the noise studies. And it's a little bit ahead of the anticipated date for the ALP, and we're looking at a late September, early October meeting dates. And as soon as we are able to refine what those dates are, we'll be working to develop getting that message out. And that concludes my outreach update. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions or receive comments.
Thank you, Ms. Powers. With the very extensive list of outreach and one area that very often we see comments and getting tagged in next door, is there any presence there or opportunities to share that information? If either you or Ms. Jawda can answer to that.
Yes, it's been considered.
I know there's a lot of activity there. It's like a whole other social media.
There is a
platform.
lot of activity. Actually, I'll answer that question first. So the Nextdoor accounts for the county in general are managed by Natalie Hernandez in the CEO's office. That's the only Nextdoor account that any county agency connects with. And so I do share a lot of the information with Natalie, and she shares at her discretion, and I can certainly discuss sharing it more with her. There's questions asked earlier about just the response from the public in general, from whether it's outreach for the ALP or for the Part 150. I'm generally on the receiving end since the email blast or the social media or whatever comes through me. And the response from the public in general has been positive. It might not, maybe the topic, whether any communication really, whether the topic there might be questions about the topic or issues with the topic in particular, but just the outreach in general from the department and the just communication has increased significantly. And so I know that the community has been appreciative of that. So, but we're always looking, having said that, we're always looking for ways to improve, and there's always room for improvement. So.
Yes, thank you. And I do want to mention, I mean, seeing the website interface is just much better and so much friendlier. I mean, you can get on there before, even as a member of the authority. I was like, where do I go on this web page? And I think that's helped just to be very direct, whether it's a noise complaint or finding information on any of these studies. So
thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for that quick update. Just to build a little bit on what Vice Chair Supervisor Lopez mentioned. I'm not shy about sharing that Nextdoor has an intention of allowing communities to communicate with one another. I personally feel that it doesn't serve government agencies or government officials as well. There's certainly a lot of room for improvement as a platform. That being said, as a private individual or as a council member or as an airport authority member, I'm more than happy if there is limitations on what the airport the Department of Airports can share. I am happy to reshare things on Nextdoor, which I've done in the past and has seen some very good traction with folks who are thankful for the information. And so if that comes up, I'm open to emails, that come out saying airport authority members, here's an update that went out on social media today on these platforms, and happy to reshare those whenever needed. So thank you.
Any other comments? Board members? Do we have any public comments?
Chair, yes, we do have one coming in. I will promote that individual, and then it'll take a minute, and then we'll get them 3 minutes. And the individual is Pat Thomas. They have joined, still on mute, but the caller is welcome to share their screen, share their image if they like, or just begin talking, and I'll give 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Pat Thomas. I'm from Camarillo. And on the topic of communication, I want you all to know that the only member of your commission who has been communicating well is the gentleman on the left. Everybody else does not speak into your microphone, except the young lady who was just on, because she's at the right height for the microphone. And it ends up that y'all are talking like a bunch of people who are mumbling to themselves. And I don't know about anybody else, but I mostly have not heard any comments that the airport authority has made in response to the issues. And that's all I needed to say. You need to do something about your sound system. It's terrible. It's almost a secret meeting.
Can I thank you? I'm guilty of not turning my phone on. I don't think the system is bad. I think the operators are bad, and we usually call that in the flying community pilot error.
Indeed.
Any other public comments?
Chair, there nobody else has their hands raised.
Okay, for Camarillo, do we have a motion to receive and file the update?
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
For Camarillo Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martita Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
and Chair Scott Bear.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Can we get a motion second from Oxnard?
So moved.
Second. Second. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
For Oxnard Authority, Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perello,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Thank you.
Fly friendly. Go ahead.
Next up, update on Fly Friendly VC.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeanette Haregi. I'm the Communications and Engagement Manager for the Department of Airports and also Public Information Officer. I'm here this evening to discuss an update on Fly Friendly VC and in particular the fly-in event that we had in June. So this will be fairly quick. We had our annual Fly Friendly VC fly-in event on June 20th at Oxnard Airport. We welcomed nearly 30 local pilots, flight instructors, and flight schools to discuss program status and expectations moving forward. The event welcomed speakers that included Lee Westfall, who's manager of the Oxnard Traffic Control Tower, Barb Filkins, who's here this evening, and John George, both locally based pilots and advocates for Fly Friendly VC. Director Freitas and I discussed current successes and emphasized the need for continued progress and commitment from all pilots who utilize Oxnard and Camarillo airports. I should have introduced the image. This is obviously just a snapshot of the day, and that's Barb and John giving their presentation. All participants were encouraged to take what they learned from the event back to their pilot peers who are pilots who were unable to attend the event. It was a success. And the whole purpose of the event was to keep Fly Friendly VC at the forefront of everyone's mind in a collective effort to be the best possible neighbors that we can be. The discussion emphasized the value and importance of the continued partnership between pilots, community, and the airports. And then the event concluded with a lunch provided by the Department of Airports. Overall, it was there's a lot of good dialogue, a lot of good exchange, and just continued nurturing of relationships, particularly for me as I'm relatively new. And so it's good to have that face-to-face contact. Next slide, please. A huge focus of the event was on this map, which is flight tracks that, and this image in particular is made possible by Barb Filkins and Eric Nelson. Huge investments in time and in money on Barb's part to make this possible as a way to show all pilots what an ideal fly-friendly BC flight track looks like. Barb and Eric also worked on a video showcasing what the tracks look like from the sky with a camera mounted on Barb's plane. Both the map and the video were displayed at the event and are currently on our website on the Fly Friendly VC page. As you know, Fly Friendly VC was launched in September 2022 as a way to address noise-related concerns from neighbors living nearby Oxnard and Camarillo airports. The push for the program in general continues to focus heavily on both local pilots, certified flight instructors, and regional flight schools, all of which have been responsive to the program. We've seen improvements, but yes, there's definitely work still to be done. With the support of pilots, though, like Barb and John and many others, and with the Part 150 noise compatibility studies currently underway, we are certain we are on a continued path of progress. So again, Barb is here tonight, so I want to extend another thank you to her for her investment in the program, her commitment to the program, and in spreading the word and just being an advocate. All of you, Chair Bear, Dr. Fussell. All of our pilots who are invested in making this a success, because we know that, really at the risk of sounding like a broken record, bridging the gap of communication that really are creating a communication that really didn't exist ever between the airports and the community has been vital and has been our focus. And so just really grateful for all of the support from pilots and from community members in general who again acknowledge that more work needs to be done, but we've established relationships to continue to do so. And so just really grateful for that. I did notice, Councilmember Perello, that you're taking a picture of this. I can email this. I believe you should have received it, but I can email the map to you if you'd like.
I was taking a picture of it because I was going to show Dr. Fussell
Okay.
something later.
All right.
That's great. Thank you.
Didn't mean to call you out. I just wanted to let you know that I could resend the photo if you needed it, the map.
I understand. You're paying attention.
Any questions?
I have one question. Would you be able to share the feedback? I mean, it sounds like it's a continuous work in progress in terms of bridging the gap between the pilots and the community. But can you share from their perspective in terms of what are some of the barriers, or is there some shared consensus in terms of what those issues may be that we may not be aware of?
From the
From the
community standpoint, the main concerns are noise and safety.
Yes.
And so, just making sure that we make information as accessible as possible, that we connect the pilots and the community whenever possible, that we are able to communicate with direct concerns. That's the community's perspective. And where they both, we all know that any relationship in life, whatever the relationship is heavily dependent on just solid communication, right? And so when that's not established or broken or whatever, there tends to be animosity, resentment, just a lack of understanding of where the other group is coming from. And so I I think, and I think there's been a huge focus on making sure pilots understand that in that face-to-face communication. So, you understand these are people just like us. Pilots are heavily invested in the community and in making quality of life as, safe and as enjoyable as possible for the folks on the ground. Similarly, the folks on the ground want to make sure that the pilots stay safe. So it goes both ways. So Keith, I think, yeah.
What we've seen over the last 18 months, and identified specifically around Camarillo, 90+% of our complaints are jet traffic over Old Town for the jet traffic that is coming into Camarillo. At Oxnard, 90% of our calls, comments are from touch and go pattern work. It's kind of a left turn south near the shoreline. So we kind of know where our hot spots are, if you will, and you see those in our noise reports. And that's what we're targeting as we go through the Part 150 process. What can we do to make it better for those folks?
Right. And all of those, whether it's the jet traffic or the touch and goes, it's all connected to noise and safety. And in many cases, air pollution as well. And so there's all these issues that we've been tackling and making sure that we're trying to connect, the pilots in the community, but also the community with us, because that did not exist before. Those relationships did not exist.
Thank you. Thank you for the update on that. Appreciate the work that's happened on it. I don't want to create a whole lot of work for staff beyond this meeting, but similar to request earlier, perhaps the update of just the slides or possibly this clip, this portion of the meeting could be placed on the Part 150 portion of the website for, or excuse me,
The
on
fly
the
friendly.
fly friendly
Mhm.
VC portion of the website. So folks who couldn't view this meeting or couldn't attend that meeting can get the brief update on how that went and what efforts have happened thus far.
Absolutely. An email blast containing the same information was sent soon after. Our email community communications list has over 300 individuals on it. So between that and social media and we do try to connect with folks, but I completely agree that we can do more. And so I can add the photos and even the write-up, which is basically a summary of what I just presented. We can add that to the website for sure.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that feedback.
And the last piece, just looking at the map, I will admit I took a picture of it too, so I could
Yeah.
use it later. But for the map, seeing on that, the turning over of neighborhoods, the left turn, the right turn, certainly is mitigated by using that type of pattern that was shown in the picture. But I would like to point out that regardless of where the turns are made, the flight path itself does consistently go over some neighborhoods still. And so I appreciate that pilots and our county folks are working to have our pilots understand the impact on neighborhoods and the height or the altitude they're flying at and the noise that could possibly create. And so even if the turn happens, there are still over and as they come back, adding in their touch and go, those neighborhoods are always going to have flights over them as well. But me speaking as someone who lives on the east, are regularly flying over, and maybe it's because I've lived there almost my entire life. I don't really care anymore. I rarely hear that as well, except for folks without mufflers or going. So you get acclimated to that stuff, but I do appreciate their willingness to be friendly pilots and for us to be good neighbors.
Right. And just to give a little bit more of an explanation, the patterns that you see here are different options that we're asking pilots to do and kind of mix it up a little bit. So what Barb did here was, there's the right turn option. There's the turn before the canal. And then when you're turning over, when you're going farther out, we're asking that they turn at least, if not farther out, a half mile past the shoreline. And so these are all the different options. And then also asking that, there's not more than maybe 3 or 4 loops done at a time. So that's the ideal situation.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Supervisor Long.
And there was a public comment that was submitted by Pat Care. Does
Mhm.
that go in? Do we address that person or anything like that? The conversation was about their concern about the numerous flyovers and turns over Fifth Street in the harbor by the mobile home, the Oxnard
Mhm.
Shores mobile home park. I just wanted to make sure that that was addressed with that person or information was shared with them.
So I've been in contact. I know who you're speaking. So she lives, the mobile home park is in this area. And so I have been in contact with her. I'll continue to reach out to her. I emailed her today about a separate issue, but I'll continue to be in contact with her.
I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure that people who are watching do know that we get public comments and emails and that they are addressed. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chair.
Chair, we do have somebody
I-
online.
I appreciate your PowerPoint. Can you put the PowerPoint where it says Seaview Estates, please?
This area?
Yeah, but
Okay.
do it on the other screen so I can see where you're going.
Oh,
Bingo, right there. Okay. Seaview Estates.
yes,
Drop below the red line. And you see it says Yolanda Mexican
yes.
Cafe. Right above CAN out of the Mexican word, there's a park, there's a school,
Right
Christian
here.
McCullough. I was in that school when the election took place, the new neighborhood chair was elected, Mr. Tabor, as I mentioned earlier. And one of the questions outside with about 20 people was he brought up the questions, how many of you are concerned about the airplanes that fly over our neighborhood? And there were a lot of people that put their hands up. I didn't go there and verify it, but the red line indicating where they're supposed to go, there is a claim from at least the number of people that were there, and they live much below Yolanda's Mexican. That's what I took the picture of to show our Oxnard chair, claiming that the planes go way beyond where they're
Farther
supposed to
south
go.
of Woolley.
Yes.
Yes, and that's, that's part of where work still needs to be done for sure. We continue I know it's not for the community and for our neighbors in particular, saying that these flight patterns have been in place for decades doesn't suffice, and I understand that. But what we're getting to is where these new flight patterns are going to be the norm. And so we just having these annual flying events, communicating regularly with the base pilots and with the regional flight schools, being in contact with the community. I mean, just having constant communication, that's going to shift. So the goal is to see less of that. Yes. Are we seeing traffic some days that goes south of Woolley? Yes. And then, if we're seeing repeated behavior by any pilots, then, we communicate with those folks and ask them, what's going on? Are you in receipt of the Fly Friendly BC information? How can we support you to make sure that this happens? So that does happen. But again, this is the ideal to stay north of Woolley.
And I just want to share this. I think this has made, all the work that you guys have done has made a big difference. But if we do continually fly on those red lines, I believe that we will have people in the Seaview neighborhoods raising Cain. How come everybody's going over my house where before they used to spread out? It's a catch-22 in my opinion. You can't win. You buy a house near an airport, there's planes and there's noise. And one of the things that happens, as I mentioned in my fellow council member, the social media, we get people talking about dumping leaded gas, poisoning kids and everything else. I mean, that's a load of crap. And that's not happening. And talking to personal friends that I know that have planes, they said I couldn't dump the tanks if I wanted to. I don't have a pet dog to reach out and grab the thing and dump my gas tank. So I don't know. I don't think we can combat that other than to call them out, but it doesn't stop them. And depending on who's looking at social media that night, it grows legs.
So
That's
in
all I
any,
wanna share.
right, in any kind of communication strategy, you're always going to fall short in reaching everybody. And that's kind of the one thing, and at least in my career, that you found, there's always folks that aren't going to receive the information, and it's tough to make sure that you're trying to reach everybody. And so the best way to combat that is just with the facts. And so, with unleaded fuel being available and just different measures being put into place, That's the best way we can combat that information.
Thank you. I just
Thank
wanted to
you.
Share that. Thank you.
Any other comments from the authority members? Mr. Nathie, we had a public comment?
Chairperson Barry, yes, we do. And this person is on the phone and they have the last 4 digits of 0978. So coming online now. And there we go. That's the correct screen. And we have 3 minutes for the caller.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We do hear you. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Joe Goslin. I'm a resident in Oxnard Shores. And I would like to commend both Jeanette and Keith for the work that they've done. We have seen some improvement, especially with the right turns are much more frequent than they were. And we have noticed an improvement, and we thank them very much, especially their work with the tower, as I think we all recognize the tower is the key to this because they're the ones communicating with the pilots on where to go. That being said, we still have some big issues with local flight schools, and it's very frustrating for us because we hear all, oh yeah, they're all on board, and in fact, one of them, one of the owners is on the commission. And I'm going to specifically call out CAU, Channel Islands Aviation, and Aspen Helicopters. These are 3 of the worst offenders. With Aspen thinks that they can just bomb their helicopters wherever they want. They do not, whether it's their airplanes or their helicopters, have any sense of the Fly Friendly program. It's ridiculous. Just this morning, Channel Islands decided it would be a great idea to bomb down the middle of the neighborhood south of from 5th Street south, right down the middle of the shores, 7 straight times. Unbelievable. So I commend them for their work, but there is a lot of work to be done, especially with the locals. And there are a lot of Oxnard local pilots that have either no idea or no respect for the neighbors. And it's not just about noise. It's becoming very apparent that safety has got to be at the top of the list. We've had 4 crashes, I believe, in Southern California in the last 75 days. And there was a recent national article citing, I think in the last 2 weeks, 7 small plane crashes throughout the country. In fact, this publication even came out and said that, and I'm quoting, flying in a private aircraft is said to be 19 times more dangerous than driving in a car, and private aviation crashes are 200 times more likely to be fatal than a commercial airline crash. So I really think there needs to be a lot more work on these flight patterns. We've got new developments coming in, North Shore and a couple others that I bet you they don't even know that they're going to get flown over. And I think the city and the airport need to get together and figure out what really is the right flight plan. And the plan should be you turn before the canal, preferably right away from homes, left if you have to. But there's a lot of work to be done, especially with some of these local flight schools. Thank you.
One more public comment?
Chair, yes, we do. Rita Weingarten and promoting and pinned. So Ms. Weingarten, if you'd like to show your camera, you may. Otherwise, we can start 3 minutes when you start talking.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
We do. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rita Weingarten and I live in Oxnard Shores. And I just want to talk a little bit more about the safety. Another member of the public gave the statistics of how unsafe the planes, the small planes actually are. And, for me, the big thing has always been noise. It's basically driven us crazy up until somewhat recently. Keith and Jeanette's efforts have been remarkable for what they have to work with. But we are still getting a lot of planes flying over us. And it does come down to this safety issue with the planes crashing. The number is astounding to me. I started to research this, which I explained to Keith and Jeanette a few months ago, and I was shocked at the safety level. And what kind of brought that on for me is some of my other neighbors, just seemed so afraid. And I thought to myself, no way could a plane come down like that. And then as I listen to the news and see the crashes and see the statistics, I'm just dumbfounded as to why these planes have to fly over our homes, and not just my home. Like one of the council members said, look at Seaview Estates, look at over there by Yolanda's Mexican Cafe. Well, they're getting a little taste of what the poor people in the shores have been living with. And then, so I do want to ask to please figure out a way to get these planes away from these homes. It's not safe. It really isn't. And as I look at this map on the screen, there's all of this agricultural area that if they could tighten up some of these turns, very few homes would have to be flown over. And to me, to mitigate the amount of homes would be a huge goal. And then lastly, on the extended flight pattern going out on the ocean, coming back, they're flying directly over Oxnard shores. We had several of them today. And again, with these statistics, I am just not comfortable. And so I am going to ask for everyone to please take a look at this again, to rethink it, and to get these planes not flying over people's homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. We do have Barb Filkins in the room here, would like to speak.
Yes, I flew those patterns, but let me bring up a few points. Number one, I'm a flight instructor. Number two, and I can probably say this for the pilots on the commission or on the authority, as well as a lot of the others. Every time we step into an airplane, there's a component that says, where are you going to put this down? Are you going to put it down in a school? Are you going to put it down in a golf course? What's the loss of life? And I can say that for almost every pilot that I know, also the pilots that I train. I just wanted to say there was a follow-up on this whole exercise that I did with the Department of Airports. I have a close friend that is the commissioner at Torrance. Torrance has a heck of a noise problem. She also lives in one of those neighborhoods. And when I asked her what the best thing we could do to improve both noise and safety, she said, good pattern hygiene. And that got me thinking. So in October, I will be back at the National Association of Flight Instructors. I've been invited to present on this subject. And it's basically saying that as far as flight instruction and flight instruction techniques go, noise and safety is almost always there, but noise also, and being a good community member, and how to go about trying to instruct that with the future generations of pilots coming up. So there's a fair amount of investment in this. I will also make one more comment on flying these patterns. I can basically say that if I had to cut power at any time and put the airplane I was flying down, I could probably have done it in a safe manner that would not have been an issue with the communities around the airport. That's it.
Yes, please.
Gene, me. And I appreciate your comments.
Getting to altitude, knowing where to turn if an emergency on takeoff happens, how to get back to the airport, maintaining proficiency in that capability. That's number one. Number two, having tracks to get to altitude, basically following the ground rules of the airport, but also trying to keep the airplane at altitude. And when you make your base, your turn to base and to final, at least for me, keep it as high as practical on a good glide slope with a stabilized approach. So I know where I'm going to put the airplane down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkins. Any further public comments?
No, that concludes the comment.
Okay, I think we're ready. Any further authority comments? I think we're ready for a motion. I'll move to receive and file the staff update. Okay, roll call.
Roll call for Camarillo Authority. Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Mayor Susan Santangelo,
Yes.
Councilmember Martita Martinez Bravo,
Yes.
and Chair Scott Bear.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Okay, Oxnard, we had a vote
So
to
moved.
receive. Second. Second. It's been motion and second. Can we get a roll call from Oxnard?
Roll call for Oxnard Authority. Supervisor Kelly Long,
Yes.
Vice Chair Supervisor Vianney Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Bert Perello,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabe Turan,
Yes.
and Chair Eugene Fussell.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Next up, Director Freitas with his report.
Chair Scott Bear and Chair Dr. Fussell. Really quickly, just going through, we did mention, I think at the last meeting, but I want to remind folks that not only do we have in-person opportunities and online for members of the public to participate, but we added a new option, which was just utilized recently, which is sending in emails to communicate with board members and airport staff. So we've added that, which kind of mirrors our Board of Supervisors process as well. Recently, for the first time, the Department of Airports has added a credit card option for tenants to utilize and pay instead of by mail or coming in with checks and things like that. So another option, positive feedback from our tenants for that. Department of Airports has been invited to speak at the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council meeting on July 27th. Staff will attend that to kind of give an update. Specifically, they asked about the construction happening at Oxnard Airport. I think we have a first picture having to do with animal service, or with supporting the Department of Animal Services. And they're August 26th, the weekend after the air show. They're doing adopt animals and clear the shelter event again, August 26th, which is here at Camarillo Airport, the Animal Services Department. Next item we have, I think another slide, is for the Boys and Girls Club. They've got an event through the Oxnard Boys and Girls Club doing a career exploration field trip to the Oxnard Airport on July 17th. We have an artesian market that happened July 1st. There's about 22 vendors at Oxnard Airport, 22 vendors, food trucks. That was Saturday, July 1st, first one. And we have a second one coming up on August 5th in the parking lot there at the terminal. We have a picture of the first two aircraft that are in the Camarillo. You can barely see them, but in the back dark area there are two airplanes in the Cloud9 project here at Camarillo. The first hangar has its two first airplanes. So they're starting to phase in their customers. There are 4 25,000 square foot hangars. Most of them at this point are dedicated to private individuals and small corporate airplane folks.
I'm getting busted. Thank you very much for staff, yourself, for really assisting on that. That's a huge project to be completed for this airport. And it's nice to see what kind of planes are in there for our public also to know. It's really great. Thank you very much.
Yes, to expand on that, the project started in 2018. A lot of work with the county, city of Camarillo, a lot of involvement. And the key is, we're talking about the concerns of our community. The folks that are bringing those airplanes are the folks and the companies that don't fly a lot. They typically are flying those airplanes 2 to 3 times, which is good for our neighbors. So they bring the business and they bring the jobs, but they don't impact our neighbors as much. So it's a good fit all the way around. As a matter of fact, that Vice Mayor from Camarillo, and then we had our mayor and other council members give a tour of those facilities as well as our board of supervisors. And then we had fortunate to have Congresswoman Julia Brownlee visit. She was doing a retreat in Ventura County, and one of the places that their team stopped at was the airport, Camarillo, and had an opportunity to fly in the county's sheriff's helicopter around the district, around the county. So very big supporter of the two airports in the county, and we're appreciative of that. That happened on June 28th. And the last item, Ojai Valley School doing a summer camp, aviation camp, actually tomorrow, again at Oxnard Airport. We're doing a tour up in the air traffic control tower. Our operations staff will talk about our ARF truck, and then Aspen helicopters is in that as well. So that's all I have, unless there's any specific questions.
Thank you for the report. Two things. The customers that only fly the planes 3 to 4 times, do we know the names of those customers that are going to the new hangar?
The only answer I've gotten from the operator is they've signed non-disclosures, and that's most of those. So that we don't share that with us.
Okay, the second thing is you mentioned you're gonna have a food truck event at one of the airports. Just a heads up, I'm sure the Board of Supervisors members that are here are aware the Environmental Health Department for the food truck has been finding people that have been serving food that is not up to standards. And they've confiscated various things. So just a heads up.
Yes, it's not our event. We will pass that on to the event.
The reason I share it with you, and I appreciate it's not our event, if something goes south, the airport will be named in this. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
For authority comments?
Go
Or
ahead.
no? For authority comments, I just wanted to say thank you. I had several citizens come to my office and meet with myself and Brian Miller, discussing their concerns and desires for the airport. I thought it was really important. I'd advocate for all of our board members or authority members, commissioners, to just hear our public and what they're saying. I think that's a really valuable tool just to get to know our community so that we can better respond, I think. One of the comments I did hear was about the noise study, and they were very thankful in regards to that. Thank you to the team for making sure I'm heard. So thank you to the noise study. I really appreciated that. And then also there was a comment in regards to public speaking, maybe not being someone's forte and wanting to email. And so I appreciate the email that was sent today all to us. I think that's a good way for our community to know that we will be hearing the comments. So thank you very much.
Any other authority comments? Mr. Tron.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, again, thank the Department of Airport staff for being proactive and transparent in the issues with the soil being stored over east of Ventura Road from the connector taxiways reconstruction project. So again, if there are folks who are watching or seeing this later on, know that if there are questions about that, they have made themselves available for those questions. And I just want to thank them for that. And then just regarding the speaker earlier also, I do want to thank the speaker for letting us know when, we're not speaking directly into the mics or if there are issues in being heard, because the public, we're here and we're live in person, and we may not be aware that folks watching from home can or cannot hear us. So thank you for that. And thank you for giving, I think it was me, the compliment that I was speaking clearly into the microphone. And I'll show the clip to my wife later and say, look, I was speaking clearly and communicating clearly. So if the speaker can say next time I was a good listener, that'd be great too. So anyways, those are my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Sure.
You want to follow that, Mr.?
Yes, I do.
Really, you go
I
right
want
ahead.
to, I want to thank the airport staff. They did it, as Councilman Turan has mentioned, that field with the dirt, covering with the plastic and the fencing around it. Tremendous. I mean, it's an improvement in that area of Oxnard. Good looking fencing. I hope that our drivers stay on the road and don't tangle with your fence because you've done a first class job. And it's a credit to this body. Thank you.
I have a comment. I've been debating whether to make it. I'm going to. I don't mean to embarrass her, but Barb Filkins is here. And Barb's been a tireless advocate for Ventura Fly Friendly. And not only is she putting her time in, but she's putting her money where her mouth is, providing the plane and fuel, her time to fly those patterns so we create the graphics. So Barb, thank you for your time, your advocacy, your support. It's important. Oh, sorry. Oh, God. It'll never stop. Anything else? Any other comments? I think we're adjourned till August 10th, 6:30. Thank you all. Oh, I guess we have to, do we move to adjourn? Okay. I move we adjourn,
Do a roll call?
please.
No, okay, all in favor. Good night.
Aye.